together. Like now they going north, now they going north. Running around like now they going north. It's so amazing to see it, folks. Insane people screaming and yelling like now they going north, like now they going north, now they going north. Running around like now they going north. It's so amazing to see it, folks. Insane people screaming and yelling like now they going north. We must rebuild the family by rebuilding the man. And for the last 31 years, we've been doing that by way of my nonprofit Bond, the Brotherhood Organization of a New Destiny. We have been rebuilding the family by rebuilding the man. We counsel. We have the monthly men's forums every first Thursday night of the month. Matter of fact, we have one tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, the first Thursday night. And Sunday services, we tutor, we counsel. We also have an entrepreneur academy where we are showing men how to start businesses or helping those who are already in business. And they are part of the academy. We guide them in the right way to go. We have our academy going on. And I realized a while back now that a lot of these guys, they overcome this anger, their natural talents start to come out. Because the only reason that one of the reasons that you don't see a lot of men, young men starting their own business is because they're angry and they can't see the right way to go. And they have not had that example in their homes while growing up. I had that example growing up that I wanted to have my own business. I was always, when I reflect on my life, I was always the kind of guy that will never try to fit in with a crowd. Just never been that way. And I've always, even in my beta days, and I've had beta days, I always tried to speak up, I remember as a kid, if an adult was wrong about something, I would speak up about it. One day, one of my aunts told me, my aunt-in-law told me, I was a kid and she said something that was wrong and I corrected her on it. She like, boy, one day your mouth gonna get you in trouble. Shut up. But it's just in my nature. My father, always, my earthly father, even though he and I didn't live together, he always owned his own business. I've never known my father not to own a business. Even though he lived up in Indiana, I lived down in Alabama, but I would go to Indiana in the summertime. Summertime. And the living is easy. So hush, little baby, don't you cry. And I would visit him, and he would always have some type of business. He had a cleaners. He had a motorcycle shop where he sold and repaired motorcycles. He eventually ended up getting a church. Oh, and then when he started working for the steel mill, he worked for Inland Steel, I believe. He started working for the steel mill. He started his own contracting company where he bought old homes and fixed them up and resold them, and some of them he kept and rented out. So it was just in my nature growing up to want that. But I also had the example in Alabama where my grandparents always worked, and they taught us to work and prepared us to leave home at 18, encouraged us to buy land. And they always said, a man should always, before he get married and do his thing, buy a home, get a job, buy a home. They never said go to college. What the? And I'm glad. But get a job, because if you have a job, you always have food on your table, right? buy some land, buy yourself a house. And I did that. At 25, I bought my first home. It was just my nature. So a lot of these young men at our Entrepreneur Academy, they didn't have that growing up. And so I started a credit union where we can loan them the money and they pay back with small interest. But the most important thing is to overcome that anger. There is no way, no how, not going to happen that you would develop into a man as long as you had anger. Because anyone, male or female, that has anger has been turned away from the Father. And he's in a fallen state. He has the identity of his mother. That's why he's emotional, he's angry, he's emotional. He has doubt, worry, insecurity, suicidal thoughts, anxiety. All that is happening because you've been turned away from your earthly father. And if you don't love by your mothers and grandmothers, and if you don't love your earthly father, you would never, ever love or know God. It's impossible to know God, to be born of God and resent your earthly father. Because whether you like it or not, know it or not, believe it or not, you could either be a secular book thumper or a Christian Bible thumper. But if you have not been born again of God, it's a waste of time. Satan is still your daddy. And so we first encourage them to, as the Bible says, repent, go and forgive so God can forgive you. And he would develop you to a man. No human being can do that. Even if you had a father in the home or your mother, and they taught you to work hard, to save your money and all those things, that is not going to develop you into a man because you are a spirit, and only the spirit of the Father can cause you to become a man. You can't do it, all right? So that's why we encourage them to go and forgive so that God could forgive them and return to the Father. You must be born of the Father. You were born of the mother, flesh and blood, and you're dying. All that insecurity and drug use and all that comes from being born of the mother and turned away from your father. But once you turn back to your Father, then all that will change. The Father in you will cause you to overcome that, because the sin is not the stuff you're into or whatever you become. The sin is the anger, the evil of the heart. Anyone who has anger is evil. Anyone. And they cannot be trusted. At some point, you will see that. And so we encourage them to overcome. I'm a living witness that once you return to the Father, you will become a man, a son of God. My biblical question is, what is a man, right? What is a man? I want to play this If poem for you. And in this If poem by, what's that guy's name? Rudyard Kipling. It's an amazing video that was put together, and it explained perfectly what happens when you return to the Father. Because all this other junk that you're doing, the gossiping, the hating your fellow man, the judging yourself and others, the drug use, the homosexuality, the lesbian, and all that is happening because you've been turned away from the Father. Black people blaming white people for being losers, making up these fairy tale ideas about racism and systemic racism and critical race theory and all that crap is coming from fallen state people whose hearts are wicked. They have no love. Satan is their daddy, passed down from their mothers. Really. I want to play this for you, and then I'll take some calls on this, because it is Men's History Month, Happy Men's History Month, August, and this is a man history moment. And listen closely to this poem if you have not heard it. It is what you will become as a Christian And as a man, when you become a man and when you return to the Father, these things will naturally happen for you. It will change your life. Watch this and listen.
If, by Rudyard Kipling, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken, and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on, if you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but are none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and, which is more, you'll be a man, my son.
Amazing. So when you return to the Father, you would naturally become that way. God would cause your inner self to become that way. Just as Satan is your daddy now due to being born of the woman and then returning away from your father, you're insecure, you're jealous, you're envy, you worry, you doubt, anxiety, all kind of mess, right? So Satan is causing you to become that way. You're not in control of that. That's why no anxiety medication or anything can make it better, because it's a spirit. And that's why you must be returned to the Father. Otherwise, it's not going to work. You're going to live a miserable life because in reality, you are dying. You're not living. But when you return to the Father, you will become alive. You have natural energy because you're of love. You're of the Father. And you have no anger toward yourself or anyone because now you can see and you understand. And God will cause you to develop into enduring all things. Be patient with that because you overcome the old habits and the old ways. He will cause you to become strong. That's why I tell a lot of men and women, because once they wake up, they can see, but they think everything else is done too. It's not. Now you got to endure, and enduring, you overcome. And don't complain about enduring. Count it all joy when you're feeling the pain. Tribulations work as patience in your life. So when you feel like, I just can't go on, I can't handle this anymore, do what you want, but rather than run into some stupid person with a degree and they dumping pills down your throat, relax and take the pain. It's ego dying. If you have a sickness or illness, go to a doctor if you want. But the ego pain, no one can do anything about that. And so when tribulations come, meaning situations, feel about those situations in the same way you feel about the so-called good times, because they're both imposters. And you shall become an if person, really. You would naturally develop into that. I learned that the hard way because I didn't have anyone to tell me this. I had to learn the hard way by going through it. Because it just made sense. I knew no human being can change it. There was nothing they can do about it, so why complain? But quietly endure the pain of dying. The ego is dying and not you. And it comes from what you believe. Whatever you believe is building the ego, and that's not you. And one other quick thing I've been talking about in church lately, when you become back to the Father, when you return to the Father, as God said, there will come a day when I'll return the children to the fathers and the fathers to the children. When you return to the Father, you will become an individual. You will be you. You won't try to fit into the tribe. You won't identify as black or white or Mexican or Japanese or Chinese. You wouldn't try to fit into the culture. You would just be you. And they will hate you for that. Because one thing, amongst many things, that tribal people hate is that individual that refuses to be a part of the tribe. That brainwashing mentality. Anyone that fits into the crowd is beta. You're weak. You're pathetic. And your path is doomed to destruction. Because everything that crowd going to go through, you will too. And there's no end to the destruction. You don't want to fit in with a crowd. Don't try to make yourself not fit in, but do not make yourself fit in. And you will be guided. And you will love being you, an individual. There's nothing like being you. And once you overcome that anger, being alone wouldn't bother you because you know God is with you and you're never alone. And all the people that turn against you or family members or whomever, you wish them well because they had no love. And be glad to see that. Because before you thought they were family members and you thought they were friends. They were not. And when people attack you, be glad to see that. But don't hate them back. Don't attack back. That make you you would naturally grow into that. All right? But you don't want to be, look at all the groups. The women are now identified with women. Look how weak they are. Pathetic. They can never be satisfied. The blacks are identified with being black. Look how messed up they are. The Mexicans who are starting to identify with being Mexican, they all joining the group. Look how messed up they are. You want that individuality. When you came into the world, that's your identity or a twin, you came by yourself. And that was for a reason. You operate on earth better as an individual, not as a tribal person, fitting in or into your color or into all this other crap. You want to be yourself. You want to be you. And once you overcome that anger, you will become you. And it would not matter what someone say or think about you. It wouldn't even matter. Because reputation, people, places, and things become not unimportant in that you can take it or leave it. Your identity comes from the Father, not from people, places, or things. Just smoke on it. Man History Month, a moment of reflection. Amazing. And don't forget to like, follow, tweet, subscribe, and share the Jesse Lee Peterson radio show, folks. We really appreciate it. We are at war. It is a spiritual battle for the soul of America. And it's going to take all of us to do it.